Hello people, you're welcome to ProUp Masterclass. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi. And in today's class, I want to talk about being sensible versus being sensitive. Sensible versus sensitive. And this class was kind of inspired by an event that happened yesterday. Yesterday I didn't go to bed early. My kids had gone to bed, my wife had gone to bed, and I was awake listening to a podcast I had recorded earlier in the day. And most of the time, when I record my podcast, what a lot of people don't know is I spend a lot of time listening to my podcast. Because when I do record, how best can I put this? A lot of times I don't know what I'm saying. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. You understand? I'm not trying to insult myself or say I'm saying it without any clarity. What I mean is a lot of times I allow um, the Spirit of God talk through me. So a lot of my recordings are not things I totally plan for. They might be thoughts I've had for a while, but then I try to make it as off the top of my head, you understand, as possible. I don't think off the top of my head is the right thing to say. I would rather say from my heart as possible, just flow from my heart or from my spirit as possible. And so when I go back to listen to it, I'm listening to it um, as an audience too, as part of the audience too myself. And a lot of times when I listen to my podcast, there are things that talk to me too. So I listen to my podcast and it's like an out of body experience I have, and just like, oh, that makes some sense. And oh, I should work on that too. So people have this perception that when I give advice through my podcast, I am talking to people or talking at people. But a lot of times I'm pointing the finger at myself too and talking to myself. So I spend a lot of time listening to it and learning from it. But then last night I was doing that, just listening to my podcast and taking some time to just get some value from it. And I told myself, look, Tola, this is like 1 a.m. It was past 1. And I said, Tola, you need to go to bed. What you are doing right now is highly irresponsible. You are up at 1:30 listening to a podcast that you can listen to anytime. You can listen to this thing first thing in the morning. But you're up at 1:30 listening to this thing when you should be getting some sleep. You're going to be up at 5 o'clock or 5:30, and it's 1:30 right now. I think you should put up this phone and sleep, or put up this podcast and go to bed. Because you're going to wake up tomorrow feeling groggy, and it's going to be hard to get out of bed. It's going to be hard to, get the kids up to go to school, do the responsible thing. But there was just something within my spirit that just told me, keep listening to that podcast. Don't listen to it tomorrow. Listen to it now. Now it felt irresponsible. I felt you're going to regret this decision. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because you're not going to get these hours back. You're going to be up in another 4 hours, and 4 hours of sleep is not sufficient for you right now. So it's going to have a knock-on effect on your tomorrow. So it was a tussle between what I was thinking was a rational thing to do and what my spirit was leading me to do. And what my spirit seemed to be leading me to do didn't make much sense at all. But I decided to go with my spirit rather than go with my sense. You see, so I decided to be more sensible than to be more sensitive than sensible. And as I finished listening to the podcast, I could smell something. I could smell like someone was cooking something, and it was getting stronger and stronger. But I didn't pay so much attention to it because by this time it was about 2 o'clock, and I put off the light and about to go to bed. And by this time, my wife was coming out of the room, just asking, "What am I doing out so late?" And when she came out, I just said, "Can you smell that?" And she said she could smell it. And I said, "Someone is cooking and it's burning." and the smell just got stronger and stronger. And I just thought, hmm, could this be our neighbors? Could this smell be coming from our neighbors? And she said it could be, but we're not sure. You understand? Because was this a smell from like real from outside the house, or was it a, a smell from our neighbors that we share the same, a common wall? And I went outside the house. I couldn't. It wasn't from outside the house, so I knew it was coming from our next door neighbor. So, and this was 2 o'clock, and I was thinking, can I call my neighbor at 2 o'clock? And ask them to go and check if something is burning in their kitchen. And if it's not, I would have just disturbed their sleep. But then my spirit told me, call your neighbor, call them right now. So I got my phone and I called them. And, woke them up from sleep because the phone rang a couple of times. And they picked up the phone, and the lady a lady, she picked up the phone, and I was like, please, sorry I'm calling you at this time, but are you cooking something right now? And she said she's not cooking anything because their house is shared by 3 people. So I said, okay, check your kitchen. Someone might be cooking from there. And I said I'll call her back. And I called her back like about 2 minutes later, and she said, "Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. Someone was cooking here, and it had burnt so bad, and was she was so appreciative. Thank you very much. Thank you." And I was like, "Okay, you are welcome." And just ending that call, I was myself and my wife. At first we were kind of upset that wow, someone could have put like food on fire and go to bed. Person actually went to bed, and it could have been a disaster. But after we got over that feeling of, that feeling of insecurity that we are only as safe as our neighbor's choice, the choices they make, you know, um, I spent some time thinking about it, and I felt so insecure. Like, God, this doesn't make any sense. Or like, someone's mistake can affect us because everyone could have gone to bed, and there was no way we would have smelt it from our room, the kids from their room. The only reason why I could smell it was because I was in the sitting room that was very close to the kitchen. And I spent some time reflecting. I was like, wow, that's incredible that I was able to stay up that late, which seemed like a very irrational, irresponsible thing to do because I needed to get some sleep, and going against, that what seems like, good medical advice. Go to bed. Don't spend time on your phone listening to stuff when you should be sleeping. I went against sensibility and I went with sensitivity, and it kind of saved our lives. It didn't kind of save our lives, it saved our lives because I don't see anybody waking up in that house. And at that time, 2 a.m., the whole house could have gone up in flames. And, I thought about it. I'm like, it's more important to be sensitive than to be sensible. And, it's something I realize a lot of people kind of grapple with, being very logical, as opposed to being very spiritual. And I keep saying this thing about, if you listen to my podcast a lot, I am a great advocate for spirituality. I'm not trying to preach to anyone. I just realize that spirituality is the key to fulfillment and safety and security in life. Once we understand that, we need to be more sensitive than sensible. I meet people nearly every day, or talk to people every day that are stuck because they are so logical. They're always trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And sometimes what makes the most sense might be might be the things that jeopardize your success the most. Um, so we put a lot of emphasis on how sensible or how logical or how rational things are. But sometimes what you need to do is to is to be more spiritual and to listen to that spirit within you. You understand? And sometimes that means going against the grain, going against the grain, going against the grain. And a lot of people are so scared to go against the grain, make really unpopular decisions. Um, those things that you can't really explain. And sometimes some of the best things you will do in your life, at the point of doing it, you really can't explain why you're doing it. So you see, it's never a good reason or the best reason to do something is not what you can explain well. You understand? So I'm like, okay, I can explain it. It makes the most sense, so I should do it. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's those things that you cannot articulate, that you cannot intellectualize, are actually the things that give you um, that lead you to the greatest form of clarity eventually. It's those things that you cannot intellectualize. You understand, that you cannot articulate, that are sometimes the wisest decisions. You understand? Just say, I just want to do this thing. I just feel led to do this thing. I just feel led. In today's world, we've made that sound so silly. And I don't blame people for making that sound silly, because a lot of people have abused this thing called leading. And a lot of people have been manipulated by people that say they have leadings. But then, I believe that leadings are very important, because there is something within each and every one of us that is an inner compass that leads us down a path that we should go. There's always an inner compass, and it's called your inner man, your spirit. It's the clearest form of knowledge. But a lot of people are too bent on book knowledge, academic knowledge, human knowledge, experience knowledge. And yeah, those things are good, but sometimes they can fail you. You understand? Just say, oh, this person did this way, so I should do it this way. And you must always realize that, yeah, sometimes those things, that kind of learning from someone else's experience might be good, but then sometimes your experience might just be totally unique to you, just totally unique to you, and doesn't need to make the best sense. I keep talking about how I got into speaking and teaching, and for me, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to be teaching and speaking. I was like, how am I going to feed my family, provide for my family with this? It just didn't make sense. I was too used to that design, my career as a designer, as what was going to be the means by which income was going to come into my family. But then I realized that God had other plans. And at the time of God revealing those plans to me, it just didn't make sense. It seemed really, really irresponsible. When I started my YouTube channel, I remember I used to drop my wife off at work and the kids off at school. And then I come home and I set my camera to record YouTube content. It didn't make sense. I felt irresponsible doing it. I was like, nobody's paying me to do this thing, and I'm recording this thing almost every day. Didn't make sense. I'm telling you. It was me having to get over that insecurity of feeling irresponsible, coming back home when every other person was out working. Just didn't make sense. But now when I think about it, 5 years later, into creating content and talking into a microphone, it makes so much sense, because a lot of the opportunities have come from people that have watched my content and listened to my content. A lot of the favor I've gotten has come from that. A lot of incredible relationships I've built have been from that. But then if I had just been rational and just thought, this is not the time to do this, this is the time to go and grind that design that makes sense, it would have been me just really, really short-circuiting my own future success. I wouldn't be where I am today. A lot of the experiences, the amazing experiences I've had, human connections I've made wouldn't have happened, So I had to be like irresponsible and irrational and just be sensitive. There was just this pull every morning. I woke up just to go and record this content. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. The content made sense, But then the doing it just didn't make any sense. I was like, so what does this mean? I at that time I was in my late 30s, you understand? I was like a 38, 37-year-old man coming back home after dropping his wife at work to record content on YouTube. That didn't make sense because most of my friends were at work. They were at work, working in banks, working in parastatals, just grinding, getting up early in the morning, wearing suits and stuff like that. And it didn't make sense. And I remember going out with some of my friends, um, some years later, and we went to a place just to, we had some coffee or so and went out together. We were three of us or four of us. And as we sat down there, a young man sitting like some tables across from us came to me and was like, sorry, are you Tola Alabi? I'm like, yes. I was like, oh yeah, I've been looking at you. And he was like, thank you very much. And he stretched out his hand and he shook my hand and was like, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you. I've been listening to your content now for years and it has really changed my life. And thank you. And he gave his phone to my friend to take a photo of us. And he was like, thank you, I really appreciate it. And we went back to his seat. And for a while, my friends and I just sat down there just looking at each other and there was like some awkward silence. And someone like, what just happened? I'm like, I really don't get it. I'm like, I don't know. And they were like, you man, people are reaching out to you that you don't even know right now. And he thought about it, like, man, I wish that could happen to me. But it didn't come about by wish. It didn't come about through wishing. I didn't wish it. I had to do. I had to do that thing that seemed really hard. Really against the grain, that I couldn't explain. At that point of starting to make content, I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain who I was. When people say, what do you do? I was always ashamed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to tell them. You understand? I wanted to do something more conventional and just say, I am an architect, I'm a banker, I'm an engineer, I work with this organization. But I just can't say I'm at home, I make content every day. It was kind of shameful. But God is greater than us. And a lot of times, because his ways are greater than us, sometimes when he asks us to do things, they seem highly irrational, illogical, and they seem to lack sense. They seem to be void of sense. But then God is not trying to make sense. You understand? God is not trying to make sense. God is on a mission to get things done. And he's trying to talk to us through our spirit. And you see, that's the wrestling between spirit and flesh sometimes, is that line between being sensible and being sensitive. And not only can it help you career-wise, it could save your life like it saved our life yesterday. And I just thought to share that with you. For me, it was just really random making this content or recording this, but I just felt a pull to record it for someone today who is out there and feels really insecure about something that your spirit is telling you to do, and you're like, I just can't do this. I can't do this. It doesn't make any sense. I can't explain it. I want you to know that sensibility is it's not on the same level as sensitivity. Sensitivity is way higher. And sometimes success lies in our ability to surrender to being sensitive to things we cannot explain, rather than being in control of our actions and saying, this makes sense, I've rationalized this. Then we become our own God. We walk in our own wisdom and in our own understanding. And our own understanding is so limited and so shallow. So if you're listening to this today, I hope this encourages you to go the path of sensitivity over sensibility, spirituality over logic.